So are there reasons not to get divorced? Well, there certainly can be. As a divorce attorney, I'm Brent Boyer, work with Adam. We do men's divorce work. There certainly are reasons for men not to get divorced. It's something to consider if you're looking at this and it's still sort of optional to you. If you're getting divorced and there's serious problems, or your wife's already filed, or things that just aren't going to change, of course that's different. But if it's something that you're contemplating, like maybe there's some things you're just not that happy about, but you're working on it and you're kind of weighing your options and you're seeing it as really more of a choice, there definitely are some things to consider. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. You can also find me on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're looking at social media. But yeah, there are definitely some things to be looking at here as far as reasons to get divorced, reasons to stay together. So as far as divorce, if it's a long-term marriage, you get divorced, you could be facing having to pay spousal support. If you've been married a long, let's say more than 20 years you're married and you make quite a bit more than your wife does, then you're a good candidate for having to pay some spousal support, or also known as alimony. So now part of your pay is going to your ex-wife at that point, every month for undetermined amount of time, depending on the situation. So that's something to consider. I think there's certainly guys that find that they're more in control of their finances after the divorce, and even if they're paying out some money like child support or spousal support, it's better than it was, because some marriages there's just this feeling of things being out of control with the spending. You really don't have any control over what happens with your income, and your wife either isn't working or isn't making that much money, not contributing to the household very much, whatever it is. So I think some guys feel some freedom, and now that they're divorced, they're going to control what's going on with their income. But there definitely are some downsides to being obligated to have to pay somebody, whether it's child support or spousal support or whatever it is. You're also looking at long-term marriage. You're looking at splitting your assets half and half. You're looking at if you own a house, you're going to have to try to figure out what to do with the house. Is one of you going to keep it? If you're going to keep the house and there's quite a bit of equity in it, now you're looking at, how do I get my wife half the equity and move on? If we own a house, it's worth 300 grand and we owe 200 on it, that means there's 100,000 in equity. That's going to mean I got to come up with 50 grand somewhere to buy out my wife if I'm planning on getting divorced and keeping the house. So, of course you could borrow against the house, but now you're incurring debt, adding to your debt instead of getting things more paid down. So some considerations there. And if you have children together, minor children, there are a lot of considerations about should you get divorced or should you try to stay together and work it out. With getting divorced when there's children, you're going to have to work out what's going to happen with custody, parenting time, child support, what that's going to look like, where are your kids staying primarily. Really just it changes everybody's lives going forward, how this is going to look. Now the kids have mom's house, they have dad's house. How is that all going to work? Where are they going to stay? When are you going to see them? When is your ex-wife at that point? When is she going to see them? And you got to consider that as far as weekends, holidays, school schedule, summer schedule. Now your kids are trying to split time between holidays or alternating holidays. There's going to be holidays that you're not going to see them, and there's holidays that your ex-wife won't be able to see them because they can't be in both places at once all the time. So that can be kind of disruptive. It's a whole new world with all that kind of stuff and figuring out how that looks. But of course, this is really, again, just addressing the issue of whether, if you're looking at divorce as an option for you as opposed to something that's happening. All too often it's something that is just happening because your wife's filed, or there are drugs, alcohol, abuse, things that are just not solvable, and you have to go forward and basically go your separate ways. But with splitting things up, you're also looking at splitting retirement accounts, making just life-changing kind of differences to your assets, what to do with liabilities, how to figure all that out. And so something to think about. It affects your family. If you've been married a long time, if you've been married 20 years, you are looking at your wife's family is your family at that point. So what's that going to look like? Is this, are your in-laws, you're just never going to have contact with these people again? Are you never going to see your wife's family again? So you want to be thinking ahead about all of that before you get into something and you can't really change it. If this was something you could have saved, something you could have worked on, you want to know before you make those choices, what does this look like? What's a long-term effect of your divorce, because it can have a big impact. I was divorced when I was a little kid. My parents got divorced when I was like 7, and ended up moving to a completely different state. And then my dad moved again, and then pretty soon I only saw him, like summers and some vacations and stuff like that. That was about it. He was living long ways away from where I was living. So those kind of things need to be considered. It's definitely a life-altering decision. Doesn't mean it has to be a bad thing. The bad thing is staying in a bad marriage, of course. A bad marriage is certainly no good for your kids. There's lots of research to support that staying together for the kids is really just a myth. If you're not happy and you're not going to be able to work it out, staying together is just making everybody miserable and prolonging the inevitable. But a lot of things to consider with what to do, how to do it, the timing. Do you have to get divorced? Is it something you can work out? Is it something you have a say in? Is this your decision? Sometimes a divorce just isn't your decision. It's something your wife's decided, or it's just completely impossible to try to go back from whatever it is that's happened that's gone wrong to cause you to be considering divorce in the first time. But I think if you're really just sort of considering it and weighing the options and thinking about it, you're probably more likely to try to work it out and try to save things, because you're not going to go rushing into this life-changing thing where it makes everything different for everybody involved for no good reason. Certainly you'd want to be doing it. There certainly could be some valid reasons if you're going as far as getting a divorce and going through all that, with the time and the cost, with basically the time and the cost and the aggravation and everything you got to deal with. So hopefully that helps. Thanks.